Have you ever found yourself repeating the same mistakes, even though you know that they always take you to the same place? That feeling of being trapped in a vicious cycle, where the same anxieties and frustrations seem to haunt you, no matter how hard you try to change. Maybe you've even tried to get rid of these invisible chains, but something always pulls you back. What is it that is sabotaging your life, undermining your achievements and draining your energy? It is common in the midst of the rush of everyday life to find ourselves consumed by small choices, words or attitudes that at first seem harmless, but which over time reveal themselves to be true poisons for our mind and spirit. And worst of all, often we don't even realize that we are being guided by these mental triggers that drag us to the bottom of the well. We feel the pressure, the stress, the frustration, but we can't identify the root of the problem. Suffering seems to come out of nowhere, but in fact it is being fueled by mental patterns that we adopt without realizing it. Have you ever wondered why, despite all your effort, certain areas of your life don't seem to move forward? Why is it that even after so many attempts, you still feel unfulfilled, anxious, or purposeless? Stoic philosophy teaches us that it is not what happens to us that affects us, but how we interpret and react to the events around us. However, there are powerful mental triggers, as subtle as they are devastating, that undermine this wisdom, making us believe that we are victims of circumstance rather than masters of our own minds. Imagine what it would be like to live a life where these triggers no longer have power over you, where decisions are made clearly, the mind remains at peace, and you feel in control of your destiny. What would it be like to wake up every day with the certainty that you are moving in the right direction, without getting carried away by destructive thoughts or impulsive reactions? Viktor Frankl, in his work on logotherapy, reminds us that even in the most adverse situations, we have the freedom to choose our attitude, and it is this freedom that defines who we are. In this video, we'll unravel the 5 worst mental triggers that silently destroy your life and undermine your potential. Let's explore why these triggers have so much power over you, how they infiltrate your day-to-day life, and most importantly, how you can escape this trap. In the end, you will not only identify these mental poisons, but you will also learn to neutralize them, regaining control over your emotions and choices. This content will guide you on a journey of self-knowledge and strengthening, showing how small adjustments in your perception can result in major transformations in your life. Get ready to free your mind and rewrite your story. Victimization. Have you ever noticed how at many times in life, we put ourselves in the role of victims? That feeling of powerlessness, where it seems that everything conspires against us, makes us believe that we are hostages of circumstances. When things don't go as planned, it's easy to fall into the trap of victimhood, blaming the world, the people around us, and even fate for our suffering. But does this attitude take us anywhere? Or does it instead keep us stuck in a cycle of frustration and discouragement? Victimization is one of the most subtle and destructive pitfalls we can face. By seeing ourselves as victims, we relinquish control over our lives, handing over our personal power to outside forces. Suddenly, we are just passengers, without any influence on the direction our life takes. Stoic philosophy teaches us a crucial lesson in this context. Although we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we react to these situations. The Stoics remind us that true power lies not in shaping the world to our will, but in shaping our perceptions and responses to inevitable adversity. Think about how liberating it would be to take responsibility for your life without outsourcing your happiness or success to factors that are beyond your reach. Instead of drowning in lamentations, Stoicism proposes that we focus on what we can really change: our thoughts, our actions, and our choices. This shift in perspective transforms victimhood into self-determination, allowing us to move forward with clarity and purpose, even in the face of the greatest difficulties. Viktor Frankl, one of the main thinkers of logotherapy, offers us a complementary view to this idea. In his work, he argues that even in the most challenging situations, we can find a purpose that gives meaning to our lives. For Frankl, the meaning we attach to our experiences is what determines our ability to overcome suffering. When we stop seeing ourselves as victims and start seeing every challenge as an opportunity to grow and learn, we develop a resilience that allows us to weather any storm. Thus, by freeing ourselves from the victim mentality, we begin to cultivate a broader and more objective worldview. We are no longer hostages of circumstances, but rather agents of our own existence, capable of shaping our lives according to our values and purpose. This process requires discipline and courage, but the benefits are invaluable. A life lived with meaning, where every decision is made with awareness and every obstacle is faced with determination. At the end of the day, victimization does not protect us from suffering, it only prolongs our pain. By accepting that not everything is under our control, but focusing on what we can influence, we become stronger and more resilient. Developing this stoic mindset and applying the principles of logotherapy in our daily lives allows us to take control of our narrative, turning adversity into catalysts for personal growth. By doing so, we not only free ourselves from the shackles of victimhood, but also pave the way for a fuller and more meaningful life. Excessive attachment. Have you ever found yourself clinging to an outcome, a status, or the need for approval from others, such that your peace of mind depends on it? Excessive attachment is a trap that often prevents us from living fully, generating insecurity, dependence, and inevitably, frustration. This compulsive need for control over what is out of our reach can leave us emotionally exhausted and unfulfilled, always at the mercy of external circumstances that we cannot govern. Stoic philosophy teaches us the importance of cultivating emotional self-sufficiency. According to the Stoics, true freedom comes from not depending on external approval or rewards. Epictetus reminds us that it is not things that disturb us, but the opinion we have of them. This view leads us to understand that the power to determine our emotional state resides within us, rather than in external events. When we focus on what's in our control, our thoughts, our attitudes, and our reactions, we free ourselves from the chains of attachment that bind us to uncertain outcomes. Developing healthy detachment does not mean being indifferent or apathetic about life, but rather understanding that the value of our existence does not depend on external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, emphasizes the importance of focusing on the present and accepting reality as it is, without trying to force the world to adjust to our desires. Detachment is the key to a peaceful mind, as it allows us to enjoy the journey without the anxiety of achieving a specific goal. This does not mean that we should not have goals, but rather that we should not link our happiness or personal worth to the achievement of them. Logotherapy also offers us a powerful perspective on attachment. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, realized that the ability to find meaning and purpose in life was what allowed people to overcome even the most adverse circumstances. He argued that by focusing on a greater intrinsic purpose, we can transcend the pursuit of external rewards and social approval. Instead of seeking value in the opinions of others or ephemeral statuses, we should find meaning in our actions and in our own existence. Developing self-esteem and self-acceptance is crucial in this process. When we recognize our intrinsic worth, regardless of what others think or what we achieve externally, we become more resilient and less susceptible to life's fluctuations. Stoic philosophy and logotherapy encourage us to enjoy the journey, rather than fixating solely on the results. This focus on the present, the process of growth and personal meaning, frees us from the constant pressure to please or fulfill external expectations. By practicing healthy detachment, we find a balance between striving for our goals and accepting what is not under our control. This allows us to live more serenely, without the weight of the constant need for external validation. Instead of becoming hostages of circumstance, we learn to be masters of our emotions and our own lives. This is the path to a fuller existence, where true value comes from within, not from what is outside. Thus, by letting go of excessive attachment, we make room for a freer and more meaningful life. We learn to value our own choices, to appreciate the present moment, and to find joy in the journey regardless of the outcomes. Not only does this strengthen us emotionally, but it also empowers us to live up to our true values and purposes, creating a life that is truly our own and not shaped by the expectations of others. Catastrophic thinking. How many times have you found yourself imagining the worst-case scenario even before anything happened? Maybe it's that job interview you're sure will fail, or a difficult conversation you already visualize ending in disaster. This habit, known as catastrophic thinking, is a mental trap that many of us face. And worst of all, it generates a paralyzing anxiety that prevents us from acting, transforming possibilities into certainties of failure even before we take the first step. Catastrophic thinking traps us in a vicious cycle, where fear of the unknown fuels unrealistic scenarios, and these unreal scenarios, in turn, intensify our fear. This behavior may seem like an attempt to prepare for the worst, but in reality, it undermines our inner peace and our ability to deal rationally with adversity. Stoic philosophy, which for centuries has guided those who seek a life of wisdom and balance, offers a powerful solution to this problem: serenity in the face of the uncertain. The Stoics, such as Seneca and Epictetus, teach us that the key to overcoming catastrophic thinking lies in cultivating objectivity and serenity. When we face a challenging situation, instead of imagining the worst, we should focus on what is really in front of us, assessing the facts with clarity and discernment. What really causes us anxiety is not the event itself, but the way we interpret it. By training our mind to focus on reality and not on our projections, we develop the ability to deal with uncertainty in a more balanced and rational way. Logotherapy complements this view by reminding us that even in the midst of adversity, there is always a meaning to be found. Frankl, who lived through extreme experiences in concentration camps, discovered that human beings have an incredible ability to find purpose and meaning even in the darkest situations. By adopting this perspective, catastrophic thinking loses its force. Instead of paralyzing ourselves with fear of what could go wrong, we begin to see every challenge as an opportunity for growth, as a chance to develop courage and resilience. When we face a difficult situation, we can choose between drowning in scenarios of doom or seeking the light in the midst of darkness. This doesn't mean ignoring the risks or difficulties, but rather keeping perspective on what really matters. By letting go of catastrophic thinking, we make room for a more positive and resilient mindset. We begin to see the uncertainties of life not as threats, but as challenges that we can face with courage and determination. Thus, we become stronger, more prepared to deal with adversity, and above all, more aware that, regardless of what happens, we can always choose the way we react. And it is this choice that defines the course of our life. Destructive perfectionism. Have you ever found yourself caught up in the incessant search for a perfection that always seems to slip through your fingers? That feeling that nothing you do is good enough, that every little mistake is a reflection of your inadequacy? Destructive perfectionism is a mental trap that traps many people, leading to a constant cycle of frustration, anxiety, and low self-esteem. This need to achieve an unrealistic standard of perfection not only robs us of peace of mind, but also distances us from what really matters: personal growth and the realization of our values. Perfectionism, as much as it is sometimes seen as a virtue, can quickly turn into a burden. The Stoics, masters in the art of living wisely, teach us that absolute perfection is unattainable, and that the unbridled pursuit of it only leads to dissatisfaction. For Seneca, life is a continuous learning process where mistakes are not only inevitable, but necessary. He said that, "To err is human, to persist in error is diabolical." True growth comes from the ability to recognize our flaws, learn from them, and move forward with humility. This posture allows us to cultivate constructive self-criticism, a way of evaluating our mistakes without self-destructing. Stoicism encourages us to focus on the process, not just the outcomes. When we focus our energy solely on achieving perfection, we fail to value the path we have traveled and the lessons we have learned along the way. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic, reminds us that the perfection of life depends on how we accept circumstances. not how we control them. By accepting that perfection is not the goal, but rather continuous improvement, we free our mind from constant pressure and allow ourselves to experience life with more lightness and authenticity. Logotherapy complements this vision by guiding us to find meaning and value in the journey, in addition to the results. Frankl shows us that even in the midst of imperfections and difficulties, it is possible to find purpose and fulfillment. Self-compassion and self-acceptance become essential tools in this process. Instead of blaming ourselves for every failure, we learn to treat ourselves with kindness, recognizing that we are human and that our imperfections are part of our experience. This does not mean settling down, but rather having a healthier and more balanced view of yourself. Destructive perfectionism disconnects us from our deepest values, making us believe that we will only be worthy of success or happiness if we achieve an unattainable ideal. However, by keeping the focus on what really matters, our values, our relationships, our purpose in life, we free ourselves from this mental prison. We realize that the value of our actions is not in their perfection, but in the intention and effort we put into them. This gives us the freedom to experiment, to make mistakes, and above all, to grow. By letting go of destructive perfectionism, you make room for a fuller and more meaningful life. You allow yourself to make mistakes, learn and evolve without the crushing weight of incessant self-criticism. Stoicism and logotherapy teach us that true perfection is not in never failing, but in continuing to move forward, even in the face of imperfections. By embracing this perspective, you not only reduce anxiety and frustration, but also strengthen your self-esteem and your ability to live a life that is authentic and aligned with your values. After all, perfection is not in the final result, but in the beauty of being human, with all its flaws and virtues. Destructive comparison. Have you ever found yourself stuck in an incessant cycle of comparing yourself to others, measuring your own worth based on the successes and achievements of others? This is a subtle but powerful trap that often leads us to question our own ability, our identity, and even our life purpose. Constant comparison with others not only generates insecurity and envy, but also demotivates us, taking us away from who we really are and what we really want to achieve. The problem with comparison is that it forces us to look outward for validation rather than focusing on our own path. Stoic philosophy, which offers valuable lessons on how to live a life of purpose and tranquility, teaches us to cultivate self-sufficiency and healthy indifference to external judgments. By developing a posture of indifference towards the opinion of others, we free ourselves from the need for external approval and begin to focus on what really matters, our own development. Each of us has a unique journey, with our own challenges and opportunities. The Stoics encourage us to embrace this uniqueness, recognizing that comparing our path to someone else's is a waste of energy and focus. Instead, we should turn our attention to our own progress, evaluating our actions and decisions based on our own values and goals. Seneca, one of the greatest exponents of Stoicism, said that happiness is a byproduct of virtue, and virtue is living in conformity with nature. In other words, being happy and fulfilled comes from living according to who we really are, not trying to follow someone else's path. Logotherapy complements this view by reminding us of the importance of finding a unique purpose in life. For Frankl, the meaning we give to our existence is deeply personal and cannot be compared or measured based on the standards of others. He believed that each person has a why that is unique, and it is this why that gives us the strength to face adversity. When we constantly compare ourselves, we lose sight of this unique purpose and begin to seek status and recognition that are ultimately empty and unsatisfying. True confidence and acceptance of yourself come from within. Instead of looking outward for recognition and validation, we should cultivate a trust based on our values and our purpose. Logotherapy teaches us to appreciate the diversity and uniqueness of each individual, including our own. This means recognizing that someone else's success does not diminish our own, and that each of us is on a different journey, with different times and rhythms. When we let go of the tendency to compare ourselves to others, we make room for a more authentic and fulfilling life. We began to value our achievements and respect our own pace of growth. This not only frees us from envy and insecurity, but also allows us to live according to our own values and goals, creating a life that is truly our own. By focusing on our own development and not on the path of others, we become more resilient, more confident, and above all, happier. Constant comparison is a burden we can choose to leave behind. By adopting these thoughts and attitudes, we can develop a worldview where our worth is not measured by the success of others, but by commitment to our own growth and purpose. This is the key to a fulfilling life, where every step we take is aligned with who we really are and what we really want to achieve. If you liked this video and feel that it helped you reflect on how to improve your life, be sure to check out the other content here on the channel. Each video is an opportunity to deepen your knowledge, explore new ideas, and find more tools to live a fuller and more conscious life. I'm sure they'll inspire you and help you tackle challenges you may not have even considered yet. And most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. Leave in the comments what you learned from this video, or if you have been in a situation similar to the topics we discussed today. Your experience can help others who are watching, and your participation is essential for us to grow together as a community. So don't forget to comment, like, and share. It makes all the difference. I'll wait for you in the next video.